Are you ready to buy a house? You're even like pre-approved, like that's how serious you are? Well, take a look at this video so that we can kind of level set expectations about how to make an offer during a hot seller's market here in Florida. Let's go over that right now. Hey everyone, my name is Natalia Reinhardt, realtor with Home Sweet Home Realty right here on the Treasure Coast, and I talk about all things related in this area, where to live, where to eat, and where to play. And so if you want to stay tuned, subscribe. I post videos every week. Now let's get started immediately to the details of an offer. Okay, I'm going to present to you the most popular offer that Florida uses, which is the as-is contract. Yes, it might sound scary if you're a buyer, especially if you're out of state or if this is not your first rodeo, but trust me, it has protections. And we're also gonna go over like what it takes really to have that offer accepted. What are details to the offer that you want to consider? Kind of plan it out now before you actually have a home. That's ideal, so there aren't any surprises or delays, and you can just think it through and what's best for you and your family. Okay, let's get started. When you're buying a house in a hot seller's market, you want to be familiar already with the offer. What does it look like, the as-is contract in Florida? Okay, so here I'm presenting to you what is most commonly used. I mean, like if you're buying a single family home, this is it. This is the big enchilada that people use, and you just have to go over a few things, especially what protects you as a common buyer. The first section that we want to go over is the financing part. Yes, there is a finance contingency built in the as-is contract. And so as long as you know that it exists, as long as you know that you can tweak it so that there's certain stipulations that have to be met, whether it's a VA loan, conventional, if you want to meet a certain criteria with the financing, and if you don't, then you want to back out, you can write it in the as-is contract. Just take into consideration some of the things I'm going to say in, soon, later on in this video, okay? But you have that protection already built in the as-is contract. Cool. The next section I want to go over is the inspection. Yes, again, built within the contract, you have the inspection contingency. That's amazing. That's kind of what you want. So this is a very clean contract that we just like to use here in the state of Florida. So if for the inspection period, usually automatically in the contract it says 15 days if it's not filled out. Okay, cool. Nowadays, you want to make sure that inspection period is a shorter time frame, 10 days, 7 days. Just be realistic. If you're actually going to do the inspection, be sure that you can get someone out there within that time frame. You can get your estimates within that time frame and then talk about it, or make a decision based on what you found during the inspection period. Time is of the essence always with this particular contract. I will say any contract, but this one says it quite often, okay? You need to do your due diligence with the financing, but you also have to be on top of it when it comes to the inspection period. The last thing that the contract actually doesn't offer built in, but it's easy to include it as a disclosure, is the appraisal contingency. So here you have the appraisal contingency where it's super simple. Just leave the areas blank. You kind of want to leave it blank so there's less amending to do, there's less changes to do if there are any updates with the offer or the time of when everything is starting. So just leave it blank, but the appraisal contingency is there. And if you have it, you have it. If they accept it, hallelujah. If they accept it with an appraisal contingency, which is not the case nowadays. So let's go over that. One of the sections that I just skipped right over, but now I want to just, come front and center with is the earnest money. And the earnest money is different in Florida than apparently in other states. So listen to this if you're not from Florida. Listen to this if you're a first-time home buyer. Earnest money is critical nowadays for the hot sellers market. This is how you're going to get their attention, the seller's attention. They're paying attention to whether or not you're going to cough up money. You're like, is an earnest money down payment? Negativo. It is not a down payment to the lender. But it can kind of behave like that, but it's not. So let me show you just how the contract works. Okay, it's very simple. If you're trying to offer $300,000 on a home, okay, that's your offer, and you want to put down $10,000 as a earnest money, then the form itself deducts the $10,000, right? So now if you ask for money through a lender, you're really asking for $290. That doesn't even count the down payment you're gonna make yet. So keep that in mind. Earnest money is like a dangling carrot, okay? It really is to the seller. You want to catch their attention. So the higher the earnest money, the higher you're going to be on that pile of serious considerations, okay? So let's pretend that they have only financed offers. The sellers only have financed offers, okay? Fine. That's more like apples to apples right now. If it is, then what's the next thing that they're gonna look at? What kind of financing? So the best type is conventional. They're a little bit more relaxed when it comes to the inspection and the appraisal. There's less to cough up from the seller side. Because a VA loan, they tend to ask for the sellers to pay for things and whatnot. Okay, so let's pretend now it's not only finance, but all the offers are conventional. Still apples to apples, right? So how are they going to differentiate? Right now, the biggest thing they're going to differentiate, that's in the very first page in their faces, would be the earnest money. So the higher the earnest money, the better for you in being serious with your offer. So at minimum, I know in other states, and if you read it online, I get it. It's 1% of whatever the listing price, or 1% of whatever offer you are making. Not the case in Florida. That's not really gonna work. You need to go higher when it comes to the earnest money. I even say just a minimum of $5,000. It almost doesn't matter what home you're buying, what the offer price is. You need to at least be $5,000. I recommend 2 to 3 times more of that if you can do it. How much savings do you have, etc. So take into consideration that you have a few out-of-pocket items to take care of if you are a buyer, okay? You have to take care of the earnest money, that's out of pocket, down payment, closing costs, but then you also have to buy or pay for, the inspector. Okay, so if you want an inspection and you're doing a conventional loan, that's also out of pocket by the buyer. That's not, sellers don't pay for that if it's a conventional loan. Just throwing it out there so everyone knows. Okay, all right. So earnest money is important. Make it as high as you can, as long as you can continue paying for that down payment and for the closing costs. Like that has to happen, obviously, right? Okay, the next thing that you really should know, número dos, is how much should you offer? Be sure, whatever realtor you have, just be sure that they do an analysis, a comp analysis. This is critical. Okay, I get that a lot of people are going way higher when it comes to asking prices. Some people are going over $50,000 or something. It's really ridiculous. I am not encouraging that. I am encouraging that your realtor does their homework for you, which is a comp analysis. So be sure that they do that. Why? Well, just because it's a hot seller's market today doesn't mean it will be in 3 to 5 years. We don't know where the economy is going to go. So be realistic when it comes to buying a home. This is still an investment, okay? So knowing that, just look at the analysis. If you can still be within the top of the range of the analysis when giving an offer, then great, do that if you're capable, but don't go overboard. Even if you have the savings, I would say don't go overboard. You kind of almost want to make sure you're more attractive with the earnest money and put savings towards that, or maybe even consider taking out maybe the appraisal contingency if you really, really want to look attractive, before going overboard with the asking price. So if the asking price is $300,000 and you want to give $330,000, just be sure that the analysis, that $330,000 is kind of in the range of the analysis that your realtor does for you. Okay, so just be wise, don't go cuckoo. Here's number 3, número 3. This is the big kahuna. If you waive the next 2 items, then you're really confident and you have savings, okay? If you have plenty of savings to waive the appraisal and you're confident about, fixing whatever you find later on if you skip the inspection, yeah, I give you props. Not a lot of people can do that. So here's what's going on. It's so competitive in this wholesalers market in Florida that people are waiving the inspection period and people are waiving the appraisal. They're just saying no to an appraisal contingency and no to an inspection. So, even though they're being lending money. So if you're financing conventional and so forth, people are trying to waive all that stuff and they're taking on the responsibilities themselves, the buyers. So how can they do that? Well, it's really all about the money. So if you have that savings, that is one way you can really be competitive and just get in there and have the seller say, ding, 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 I pick you. All right. So let me explain though the inspection period. If you waive that, if you say, no, we don't need to have an inspection, well, you still need to really have one, okay, eventually, because you need home insurance. So you need the wind mitigation report and all that good stuff in order to be home insured, which is a requirement in order to get lended money. So be realistic there. Can you truly waive the inspection? No, not totally. So if you only want the wind mitigation report because that's all you need really for the home insurance, then fine. You at least need an inspection period of 5 days so that you can get someone out on time and get the report, back to you within the 5 days. Is it risky? Of course it is, but some buyers know how to handle homes. Some buyers are just willing to work with it, for in a few years, this problem or that problem, whatever. So that if that works out for you, okay. However, then we have the appraisal contingency that people are waiving. And again, that's a requirement for lenders. So let's be real. Can you really waive it? Yes, some, buyers can waive it. But this is what you have to be prepared for. Here's my example. If you get an offer accepted at $300,000, okay, and the appraisal comes in anyways, because appraisal is going to happen whether or not you waive it on the offer. The appraiser says the home is worth $290,000. Well, that $10,000 difference is now the responsibility of the buyer. The buyer has to cough up that money. So now realize that you have a big earnest deposit to make, right? Maybe $10,000. Who knows how much you offered on the offer, right? On the contract. You have the down payment to take care of out of pocket. You have the closing costs to take care of. And if there's a difference, whether it's $10,000 like my example, or even if it's $20,000 of a difference, come the appraisal time, then you need to pay that difference out of pocket. That's 4 major things. A lot of people don't have that much money. So if you are one of those that can kind of waive the appraisal, that can, finagle and just do a wind mitigation report during the inspection period, good for you. You're on the top of the list, really. I just recommend that you kind of rather waive those appraisals or whatnot if you have the savings versus going too high on an offer, when it kind of goes beyond the comp analysis range, okay? Because it's still an investment. Your home still is an investment. It's finances. Like, you have to make wise choices here, and you don't know how the economy will be come 3 to 5 years. So just keep that in mind. Are you gonna risk it with the worth of your home, the equity or lack of in 3 to 5 years? Or are you just going to spend your savings? Some people don't have it, but spend that savings that you have, and get that home. So pros and cons and something that's very personal. Just do what's best for you. Okay, I'm really loving this approach, and a lot of lenders don't do this. So you have to kind of, pick your lenders wisely. Don't just go with someone that you know. It's kind of weird that I'm saying that. Just make sure that they can offer the services that you need at the time frame that you need when it comes to a lender, okay? So my next suggestion, in order to be attractive in an offer, is to already be pre-underwritten, okay? There's 3 different things. There's the pre-qualification, there's the pre-approval, and there's pre-underwritten. Yes. There's a such thing. So you want to be pre-underwritten. That means you're pretty much guaranteed the money, the lending, right? It's so much prettier to be calling, a fellow agent, the listing agent. It's like, hey, I have a great offer for you. My people are already pre-underwritten, not pre-approved, pre-underwritten. So we can make this close quickly if need be. You let me know if this is attractive or whatever it is. It is attractive. I know it is. So try to be pre-underwritten. It's going to help you out dramatically in looking more attractive, and yet it's going to be such a smoother transition to close. So it's just so much easier for everyone on both sides. All right, 2 more things to go over. Time. Are you going to be flexible with the time? Can you be flexible with the time on when to close? Some sellers want a closing in 12 days. What about extending it? You have some sellers that need to buy their home, so maybe they need the 90 days. Can you wait that long? So be sure that when you're considering an offer, that you write down or tell the listing agent, hey, my people are flexible. They can do a little bit sooner. They can do sometime later. Just let's be clear and let's make a deal. Last but not least, and it's weird, we don't do this in Florida, not really. It's uncommon. Like my broker of 23 years, like he's only seen it once done. And to be honest, in this hot sellers market in Florida, is not really gonna work too much, but I'm gonna throw it out there. Escalation clause. Okay, so an escalation clause is pretty much like, hey, I'm gonna bid, for example, the $300,000, and just in case, I'm throwing the escalation clause, and I can go up to like $10,000 more, but the escalation clause says, hey, show me proof that you have a higher bid, and I can increase that by $1,000. I can increase that by $2,000 up to that $10,000 mark or whatever threshold you want to put down. So that's an escalation clause, which sounds super attractive. Is it really effective in Florida? Not really. Okay, why? Well, if your agent does their job correctly, they either read the notes of the listing agent or they talk to them and they find out if this is a high and best bid. If it's a high and best bid, the escalation clause is like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to deal with you. That's what it is. They just don't want messiness. Sellers, listing agents, keep it simple. Less is more when it comes to the offer. So an escalation clause can be competitive in maybe other states, not so much in Florida, because a lot of agents are saying either written or later verbal, maybe even through text, they just tell us high and best. So the escalation clause kind of goes just out the window. All right, last detail about Earnest Money, just to put it out there on the record, can you lose your earnest money? Whether you offer $5,000 or $20,000. Yes, you can. So think about that. You are really committing to making this offer happen if it's at a $20,000 range, for sure. Why? How can you lose that earnest money? Well, if you get out of the contract or back out, not for a legitimate reason, let's say the inspection period passed, appraisal contingency was waived or passed, that all that stuff just passed, and at the very end you're like, no, maybe I have a family emergency or something came up and I'm not moving anymore. Yeah, you're gonna lose that money. Like, that's not a reason, okay, on the contract. So that $20,000 or whatever you offered stays with the seller. However, there are plenty of reasons and many protections on the as-is contract in order to get that money back if you're the buyer. If you offer that $20,000 for earnest money and during the inspection period that you actually have, found that you needed a new roof and it's $20,000 to $30,000 itself, and but my 20 is already going to earnest money and you really don't have any other funds for it, at least in the next year or so, then maybe you want to back out. Well, that's a legitimate reason. Have it in writing, show the estimates, and you can surely get your earnest money back. So many different periods that you can get the earnest money back if you do need to back out. Just keep in mind that if it's not an approved or legitimate reason, you will not get that earnest money back. That stays with the seller. Okay, that was part of the deal. So something to consider. All right, so we went over a lot of things, and not even everything that you can possibly do on an offer to look more attractive. The number one thing though that you can do to look attractive in an offer is cash. Yes, I didn't mention it because a whole bunch of people are really still financing, and that's the truth. But if you are able to do cash, do the cash, okay? You want to do the cash. It is seriously the most attractive thing to a seller. You don't have to worry about the financing contingency. You already have it. Show proof of funds and you're done. You don't have to have an appraisal. So many reasons that you can just be picked, right? You want to be picked. So keep that in mind. Cash is numero uno. If you want to be on the top of the list, just more cash offers, let alone with no appraisal contingencies, you probably won't be picked if you're conventional VA with appraisal contingencies. It's not going to happen. Just remember, high and best. That's how it works right now in Florida with this hot sellers market. If this video helped you in any way, please give it a thumbs up. I hope to help you out whether you're buying or listing your home here on the Treasure Coast. My name is Natalia Reinhardt and I am your host of the Treasure Coast, and I will see you around town.